Good morning. Beautiful spring day here on the central coast of California. Good morning, good morning. Beautiful day here. Spring has definitely arrived on the central coast. We'll go ahead and start our stroll in just a minute or so. Hoping you can hear the choir of birds in the background. Good morning, Omar. The grass does look beautiful, doesn't it? You can see the beautiful bay here. The stretch right here all along this coastline, all the way up towards Harmony Headlands, which you can't see. This is known as Estero Bay. And where we're at exploring today is Estero Bluffs State Park. One of the main things that has not only drawn people to come here, but also to create this beautiful state park is its view shed. So you can see we have a beautiful view shed all along the coast here. No obstructions in the way. Omar is asking, is anyone there? There are some people here. We've got some hikers in the distance. Beautiful day. I'll go ahead and flip the camera and we'll start our little walk. Let me introduce myself. Hello, if it's your first time here, my name is Robin. I'm a state park interpreter, and occasionally you'll find me on Mondays doing a stroll somewhere along the San Luis Obispo Coast District. And that is in the central coast of California, anywhere from Montana de Oro State Park up to north of Hearst Castle. So we have a big stretch of coastline here, and we have lots to explore. And on Mondays, we celebrate MPA Monday, which MPA stands for Marine Protected Areas. Marine protected areas are much like these parks, like this land park that we're all exploring right now, except they're under the water. They're under the waves, and these are parks set aside in the ocean. So protected areas for ocean life, plants and animals. And right now we're exploring Estero Bluffs State Park. and it's a beautiful day here. I'm going to flip the camera in a little bit, and I'm hoping that you can actually see the color of the flowers here, because we actually have a lot of beautiful little pretty purple and blue flowers. And I actually don't know what kind of flowers these are. So if anybody knows, feel free to type it in the chat. That's what I love about communicating and hanging out with you guys, is we just share our knowledge. Obviously, ideally, I would love to have you here. We could take a little nature walk together. But right now, this is the best that we've got. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you'll participate. Go ahead and feel free to type in the chat where you're tuning in from. Or maybe if you've been here before. Maybe you've been to Estero Bluffs State Park. We're just north of the town Cayucas. So just here is the town of Cayucas. You can actually see the Cayucas Pier just right there. Just south of the town Cayucas, you can see, or kind of see, Morro Bay. I'm actually having difficulty seeing the rock myself without looking through the camera. But if you're familiar with Morro Rock, it's just about here somewhere. And as I was mentioning earlier, this is a beautiful state park for several reasons. One of the main reasons is its view shed. There's just such a wide, non-obstructed view of this beautiful stretch of coastline. I've got some people in the chat. Thank you so much. Those views are awesome. Yes, they are, Joel. I'm glad you can enjoy them. Are there available campsites? There's no campsites at this park, at Estero Bluffs State Park, but we have 2 campsites just south of here. There is Morro Bay State Park, as well as Morro Strand State Beach. And then to the north of here, at San Simeon State Park, there is a campground there as well. So definitely check into that, because those campgrounds are open right now. Good morning, Diane. Oh, she lives in San Simeon, visiting family in Temecula. Well, I'm glad I could bring a little bit of home to you. Hello, Cheryl. Hello from Ohio. Thanks for tuning in, Cheryl. I'm glad we could bring a little bit of California to you. So as we get a little closer to the coast, you can see the draw to this park, really. Not only do we have these beautiful meadows here behind us, and if you tuned in at the beginning, you might have been able to hear the choir of birds. They're actually still going, but you might not be able to hear it over the sound of the waves. It's a little bit lower tide today, so it's actually a great time for tide pooling. You can see all these rocks just off of the coastline. Ideal habitat for lots of little critters. We've got some cormorants hanging out on distant rocks. Cormorants are really cool seabirds. I've seen them. I'm a scuba diver. I've actually seen them at depths of 80 feet underwater. And they just fly around underwater just as they fly around in the sky. Super graceful. Again, for those of you just tuning in, we're here at Estero Bluffs State Park. You can see Cayucas Pier just off in the distance. The town of Cayucas is just south of us. Unfortunately, we won't be able to go tide pooling today. I've tried it in the past and connectivity is not great down past this bluff. But hopefully you can enjoy from up above. There are some amazing views as well, so nothing to complain about. I haven't actually seen it this low in quite a while. I haven't been here at low tide. Let's see if I can spot anything else for you guys. Any marine mammals hauled out. Steven's saying he loves the beautiful meadows, choir of birds, and the waves off in the distance. And that tide pooling, yes, tide pooling is so fun. Always making sure to do it respectfully, of course. Watching where we step and leaving everything where we found it. As a kid, I'm guilty of not being so wise about that. But as an adult, I've learned if you pick a crab up, for example, in one location, hang out with them for a little bit, show them to your friends, drop them off at another location, that can be a pure shock. Oh, we've got some black oyster catchers here. I'm sure you can hear them. Black oyster catchers are super fun to watch and hear, as you can. Let's see if I can zoom in on him. Can't see them super well, but they're a dark black bird. They have an orange beak, bright orange, and they have pink legs. This camera is not doing justice at all, but they're right about right there. You can see them waddling down a little bit. And hopefully you can hear that sound, as they're a very distinct weep call. And these birds live in the tide pools. So they'll actually rest their eggs directly on a rock. This is actually another really important reason to be very mindful when we're tide pooling, because these birds, they won't use any debris or anything to cover up or to even support the egg upon the rock. You can see him pretty well now. He's climbing down. So they just rest their eggs directly on top of the rocks. And they do this just above the high tide line so that tides don't affect them at all. But as you can tell, or just from hearing eggs on top of a rock, they're extremely vulnerable. Vulnerable to predators and even to humans walking around and during the tide pools. They blend in really well. I've seen these eggs just resting on rocks, and I've had to really look at them. They were pointed out to me by one of our wonderful California State Park environmental scientists, and they really blend in. So being very mindful and patient as you're walking through the tide pools and enjoying is extremely crucial for the animals that live here. Like I mentioned earlier, picking up a crab and dropping them off elsewhere, it's like you being picked up from your home, wherever you're tuning in from, and being dropped off 500 miles away. That's a huge shock. Oh, we've got a question. Where are good places to scuba dive around here? I'm new to Morro Bay. I've actually not yet scuba dived on the Central Coast. I've been here for about 2 years or so, and I haven't yet done anything. I have heard that there's pretty good diving in Morro Bay itself, just off of White Point, or I'm sorry, not White Point, Fairbanks Point, near the Heron Rookery. There's supposed to be a good spot over there. I would definitely check into our local dive shops though. They've got all the local know-how, good spots to dive and whatnot. Charles is saying childhood memories of pure joy, clam chowder, puma shell necklaces everywhere. I'm glad I could bring some of your childhood to beautiful, beautiful day. I'm so glad you guys could tune in today. It's been hit or miss on the weather. If any of you have ever been to the Central Coast, whether it's cloudy, overcast, windy, all beautiful days, but to be able to view it through a camera, it's much more ideal to have sunny skies, no wind, which is exactly what we have today. Some of you may notice there's actually a boat off in the distance here. I don't have a whole lot of information about this boat. I know it's been here for a couple of years. I know that there was nobody harmed when this boat landed here. Obviously shipwrecked. Got someone tide pulling down below. So glad you guys were able to hear the black oyster catchers. One of my favorite birds. We'll go ahead and take our little stroll on. Pop through the meadows for anybody who wasn't able to see them. Actually, zoom in on this flower here. Again, for any of you flower experts, these might be blue-eyed something. I can't remember the name of them. I can definitely look it up and type it in the chat later on though, if anybody's interested. For anybody who likes to ID things when you're out on a hike like this, a wonderful app that I like to use is called iNaturalist. I highly recommend using iNaturalist, the letter I, and then Naturalist. It's actually created by the Cal Academy of Sciences. Cal Academy of Science up in San Francisco. And you can ID all kinds of things, from flowers to bugs. You can even do tracks. So if you're out and about and you see a neat track, you can take a picture of it, and there's a crew of individuals who are experts, subject matter experts, and they will inform you once they've ID'd it. So tracks, even scat. So if you see some poop, maybe you live on a large piece of property, you find some poop or scat, you can take a picture of that and possibly get it ID'd. Sometimes it takes a while. They'll respond to you via email, but sometimes it's instant. A lot of times I'll actually search options from the picture that I provided. They'll have some options to choose from, and I'll scroll through, find out what looks the most similar, choose it, and if I were to happen to get it wrong, I would actually be corrected on the accurate species. So it's a really cool app called iNaturalist, and I use it several times a day probably. See, we've got these yellow flowers here, which are really pretty. They are extremely invasive though. This is mustard. Some more of those blue flowers, blue purple. You can see the hills are still a little green. Glad we were able to make it out here before spring is over. Because in true California fashion, as the heat rises and the rain diminishes, all of these meadows will be not as colorful. The hills as well. The grass will dry out, the flowers will disappear, and it's still beautiful. Just a different season of beauty. This park is really fascinating. It's a long stretch of coast here. We've got 3.5 miles at Estero Bluffs State Park. And like I've mentioned before, you can tell it's beautiful for several reasons. And one of the main ones is this view shed here. Just have such wide, expansive views, which is very rare in California. For those of you who live here or who've been here before, it's not often that you can just see large stretches of undeveloped land, wild land really, on the California coast. It's a closer shot of that boat, which ironically is called the Estero. Here's a shot of that beach just below the bluffs. And we're on the southern end of this park here. And it stretches up 3.5 miles north. Got a little bird making a little home in the hole in the rocks. So for MPA Monday, we typically bring highlights to marine protected areas. And for some of you who are familiar, there actually is no marine protected area, or MPA, just off of Estero Bluffs. But the reason I like to highlight these adjacent areas, because we actually have in Morro Bay, which you can't see super well, in the distance you would be able to see Morro Rock. And in the bay, there's actually 2 MPAs. And just to the north of us, there is another state park called Headlands State Park, a beautiful state park. And there's an MPA just near there called White Rock. And another one just north of that called Cambria. So we have MPAs surrounding us. And what's really cool about MPAs is you can think of them like charging stations. They're just pumping life into our oceans, allowing for the wildlife to thrive, for all of the species to interact the way that they're meant to, because we're not just protecting one species like a certain fish or kelp bed, but we're protecting the entire ecosystem and how they interact with each other. And this allows for these animals to produce more life. There's more production in those ecosystems because of that protection, and therefore they're able to actually spill over into adjacent areas. This is what's actually known as the spillover effect. That spillover effect allows for areas around a marine protected area to actually benefit, having more fish, more life, marine mammals. If there's more fish, you can imagine all the animals that eat fish. This is their staple resource. So seabirds, all of the species within that ecosystem are then thriving. So even though this is not a marine protected area, it's benefiting from that spillover effect, both to the south of us as well as to the north. And of course, having this beautiful state park here as well, with no infrastructure or development of any kind. You can see all the birds here resting in the rocks. Having this free of disturbance allows for all of these animals to thrive. And it's all connected, right? So if the animals on land are protected, it'll in turn help the animals off land. Because there's many animals, just like the black oyster catcher we saw earlier, who kind of live in that limbo, right? They live in this intertidal zone. That's what the tide pools are called. Got some beautiful waves in the distance. One last little zone scan of this beautiful park. Again, we're here at Estero Bluffs State Park on the central coast of California. You guys were able to come in on a beautiful day. Again, I wish you could actually be here, but it's so nice for those of you who may not be local. You can be here live for MPA Monday. I want to thank you all so much for joining me today. Again, my name is Robin, a state park interpreter here, and you can find me on most Mondays celebrating Marine Protected Area Monday, or MPA Monday. Again, we just checked out Estero Bluffs State Park on the beautiful San Luis Obispo Coast District. You can see that shipwreck again just behind us. So feel free to check out these beautiful parks. Feel free to comment down below any places that you would like to visit in the future. Any certain parks, anywhere from Montana de Oro State Park up to Hearst San Simeon, or even Piedras Blancas north of Hearst Castle. So we've got a lot of coastline here to explore. And I'm happy to go wherever you guys recommend. Obviously, as long as it's within state park boundaries. We do have lots of partners locally though, so feel free to put out some suggestions and I can maybe put out some feelers for our partners and get a tour of certain areas. So thank you again so much for joining me today. As you can see, I'm wearing a mask to keep myself as well as others safe in this public space. But I'll go ahead and give you guys a smile so you can actually see what I look like, and I can have you guys see a smile instead of a mask. So thank you again so much for joining me today. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and most importantly, stay kind. See you guys next time.